Joining us via Zoom to discuss Zuma's latest court bid at the High Court, we are joined by Legal Analyst Ulrich Roux. Ulrich, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the agenda.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Now, Advocate Toby argues that the matter of Zuma's arrest should be decided at the Constitutional Court, as this was where the sentence was passed in the first place. So how much weight does this argument hold?
No, I think his argument is spot on. As he correctly pointed out, what Jacob Zuma is now attempting to do is to stay an order of the Constitutional Court to avoid being arrested, pending the outcome of his rescission application, which is only being heard on the 12th of July by the Constitutional Court. And as correctly pointed out, he has approached the wrong forum to do this. He cannot go to the High Court in order to ask for a Constitutional Court order to be stayed. If he wanted it to be stayed, he should have approached the Constitutional Court directly. So I think a very good and strong argument raised by the Commission and their legal representatives pertaining to the jurisdictional issue that Jacob Zuma has. And this has always been the problem with the application heard yesterday, is that, the Constitutional Court is obviously our highest court in the country. No Constitutional Court order can be appealed or reviewed. It can only be, an application can only be brought to rescind it, and that must be brought directly to the Constitutional Court order. And also, if you want the order to be stayed or altered or deviated from in whatever manner, then you should approach the Con Court, not the High Court.
Yeah. And Advocate Dalimpofu argued on the 6 grounds of jurisdiction, which he says allows the High Court to interdict any court order. Is this a little door open for Zuma's defense to be successful in his bid?
I don't think so. He argued that the High Court has inherent national jurisdiction. And once again, I think his argument is going to fall short. There's just simply no way around this jurisdictional problem that Jacob Zuma has. A Constitutional Court order was made, and the Constitutional Court is the only court that can deviate from that. No other court. The requirements for an interdict, he tried to make out a strong case for that. Once again, you need to cross the first hurdle before you can even go into the merits of the matter. And that hurdle is their problem, and that is that they don't have any grounds to approach the High Court for this application.
So if Zuma did indeed seek an interim interdict from the Commission hearing his matter in the first place, would we be having this discussion today?
No, I don't think so. If he approached the Constitutional Court to ask for it and he was successful there, then yes, that could have been the answer. But just to go back to the full history of the matter, I mean, one could argue that if he just availed himself, to testify, then he would never have been in this position from the outset. But if he had approached the High Court, to seek an interdict from the Commission of Inquiry, forcing him to testify, that could have been the right strategy for him to follow. If that was not successful, he could have approached the Constitutional Court for an interdict, but he did not do so. All he's done is he's brought an application for the rescission of the Constitutional Court order, so in other words, to have it set aside, and then obviously followed up with the application to the High Court to stay and pend the execution of that order pending the finalization of his rescission application.
And should this court bid by Zuma fail, will he have other avenues to stay out of jail?
Well, in my opinion, at the moment, he doesn't have any avenues to stay out of jail. At the moment, the Constitutional Court order stands, and that order said very clearly that Jacob Zuma had 5 calendar days within which to hand himself over to the South African Police Services. That period expired at midnight on this past Sunday. And then the order goes further to say that in the event that he does not hand himself over, then the Minister of Police and the Police Commissioner have 3 days within which to arrest him and to incarcerate him so that he can start serving his sentence. That period expires at midnight tonight. There is no order whatsoever which stays the execution of the Constitutional Court order. So, in my opinion, he should be, the police commissioner should be arresting him during the course of today. Even though the outcome of this High Court application is only to be heard on Friday, there's nothing that stays this order. The fact that that the Minister of Police and the Police Commission have written a letter to the Constitutional Court seeking guidance or clarity. There's nothing to seek guidance or clarity on. There's a Constitutional Court order, and if they do not act in accordance with that Constitutional Court order by effecting the arrest before midnight today, then they themselves will also be in contempt of a court order. So, one is always cautious to predict how these matters unfold, but I do not see the High Court application of Jacob Zuma being successful. I see it being set aside. But pending that, he should start serving his period of imprisonment. If for argument's sake, his rescission application is successful in the Constitutional Court, then he would have served his sentence and then he would be released. So that is he needs to comply with the order at all times.
So should the situation on the ground matter when police are effecting an arrest warrant or rather an arrest order?
Sorry, just provide clarity. Should the position on the ground? I'm not understanding.
Should the situation on the ground matter when police are carrying out an arrest order, as we've seen in Ngandla?
No, the scenario at the moment is an absolute state of lawlessness, in my opinion. People making public statements that they are going to prevent the South African police from executing a Constitutional Court order, and they will, carry arms against the police and protect Jacob Zuma. It's bizarre. It's completely bizarre. We have a rule of law in this country. We are a country that is governed by, firstly, the Constitution, and secondly, by legislation and numerous other acts. And it is the duty of the South African police services to enforce those regulations within those acts. The people gathering at Kandla was a complete bizarre scenario. The police should have acted immediately. They should have dispersed those crowds. It is in complete contravention of our current lockdown regulations. And you cannot prevent the police from carrying out their duties. That is a criminal offence, and one would like to see the police showing a stronger force at the moment and standing up for our Constitution, because that is their duty to do so, as well as the Police Commissioner and the Minister of Police.
Sure, it is indeed their duty to do so, but then they find themselves in a very tight conundrum, if I would say that, because this case is not only volatile in terms of the legalities and the technical legalities of it, but it's also a highly political case. So where does that leave Minister Bheki if he does not oversee the arrest of Jacob Zuma?
Well, of course, it is loaded with politics, and there's a massive influence, I can imagine, on the Minister of Police, but that does not prevent him from acting in accordance with his duties and acting in accordance with the Constitutional Court order. That order is 100% clear. There should be no confusion. It doesn't matter who he needs to arrest. He needs to comply with a Constitutional Court order. So whether it's a man on the street or a former president of South Africa, everyone is bound by the Constitution and by our Constitutional Court. So even though they've tried to politicize it as much as possible, and they've tried to seek every single avenue to avoid acting in accordance with the Constitutional Court order, it has no bearing on the execution of that order, and they should be doing that.
All right, Ulrich Roux, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for joining us. That was legal analyst Ulrich Roux, just joining us and sharing us his thoughts with regards to the Zuma case.